Joe Biden has called lids early in the day, 9 days this month, taking full days off from campaigning in a critical stretch. His team says that is to prep for next week's debate. Team Rising is here to make sense of it all. Joining us now, Democratic strategist and senior VP of Issues Management with MWWPR Public Affairs, Jennifer Holdsworth, and senior policy analyst with the Independent Women's Forum, Inez Stepman. Great to see you both, ladies.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Okay, so let's start off this. It's a very hot topic of conversation, right? Which is Biden making the right move? Is he making the wrong move? We have some Democratic strategists who spoke to our own reporter, Jonathan Easley. In addition, of course, for the 9th time, Joe Biden has taken a full day off campaigning. And they say that if Joe Biden loses, that very much this could be the reason why he hasn't been out there, hasn't been seen in the public. Jennifer, let's start with you. What do you make of the strategy currently, 9 days this month, so close to Election Day, that Joe Biden is just not in the public eye?
Well, a couple things. Number one, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. And while this president would like to pretend that we're not, and he doesn't want to acknowledge that over 200,000 Americans have died on his watch, I think that VP Biden is being very responsible in how he's campaigning. The team made a decision a while ago to switch into an almost entirely digital campaign strategy. And I think that that's a good thing. Yes, he still has to be out there meeting with individuals, showing up at events as long as there's social distance and everybody wears a mask. I think that VP Biden is being unbelievably responsible, not irresponsible. Number two, let's talk about preparation. Only under this presidency would prep be considered a negative thing. Right now, it looks like 90% of people, of likely voters, have their minds made up, right? There are very, very, very few voters in this country making up their mind between VP Biden and Donald Trump. That's not what's happening. They're making up their mind about whether they're going to vote or not. Those are two entirely different scenarios. And for VP Biden to spend his time doing prep to make sure that he's going to get the answers that he needs to across to the American people to bring them off the sidelines and to make sure that they're going to vote, that's a great thing. Nobody expects a president or a presidential candidate to know every single thing about every single topic. In fact, the mark of a very intelligent person is knowing what they don't know. So you listen to experts and then you lead. That's what Joe Biden is preparing to do. And in any other normal situation, that would be considered a good thing.
Jen, let me just push back before we get Inez in here, because let's be honest, even during the Democratic primary, dude didn't campaign that much, right? I mean, he had a much lighter schedule than Mayor Pete, your candidate, much lighter schedule than Bernie Sanders, than any of the other candidates, Kamala Harris, whoever you want to talk about. And so that strategy has continued of basically, let's lay low and let's just let the president basically hang himself. Ultimately, though, you're betting on Trump being terrible enough. Like, you're betting on just he's going to be bad enough that people see that and that's enough, rather than having your own affirmative offensive case. Do you think that's the right approach? And then also, the Trump campaign is aggressively door knocking. The Biden campaign is not door knocking at all. Putting the pandemic aside, do you think that door knocking is effective? Do you think that it ultimately matters?
So I'll go backwards. In a normal year, yes, door knocking is effective. I started my entire career in field back when I was 16 years old. Door knocking can move a race anywhere between 2 to 4 points, depending on how excellent your field program is, right? So I completely believe in door knocking. Not when we're in a pandemic. Also, the country is very much on edge right now. I don't think it's a good thing to just randomly knock on people's doors right now. They're very, very suspect of what's happening in the country with regard to COVID and a lot of other issues. So again, the team making a decision to go digital early on was a good thing. And with regard to VP Biden's schedule in the primary, it certainly didn't hurt him. We're all sitting here talking about him because he's the nominee. Mayor Pete didn't advance, Kamala Harris didn't advance, Bernie Sanders didn't advance, right?
No, that's my point.
I think that was because he had a very strategic team that knew where he needed to target and knew where he needed to show up to make sure that he won. And that's exactly what they're doing for the general election as well.
Well, and Inez, that is my question to you of lots of people are kind of hand-wringing about where's Biden, and he's not really campaigning, he's not really doing anything, it's not knocking on doors. This Obama aide who was like, if he loses, this is going to be like the Hillary not going to Wisconsin thing that everybody seizes on of maybe he should have campaigned a bit more. But on the other hand, there were states he won in the primary that he didn't have a field office in, and he did not visit one time, and he won them handily. So maybe it's a smart strategy.
I think traditional campaigning is on its head right now.
Let's get Inez
in here.
Thank you. So I'm not sure I buy that explanation, primarily because it's one thing not to do door knocking. Like, I understand that there are limitations in a pandemic that there wouldn't normally be. We're all living through a very strange time right now. But that doesn't mean the guy can't hold a press conference, right? I think this is either one of two things. It would be helpful for him to put down some of those rumors about the fact that he's not physically up to campaigning. But the other thing that I think is more likely is simply his strategy is, as you said, Crystal, just to pin this entire race on Donald Trump. It's going to be Trump versus not Trump. And while that might be enough for people who don't like Trump, if this race indeed is a race on turnout and people deciding whether or not they're going to vote, I'm not sure that's the best strategy. Biden doesn't have the best enthusiasm for his own sake, as opposed to anti-Trump enthusiasm to begin with. So I'm not sure that the best strategy is to just kind of hope that everybody sees him as the blank slate alternative. That's not really a recipe for getting people excited about the election.
Yeah, I mean, and as let me push you a little bit there too, which is that at the end of the day, though, Trump has to offer something. And do you think he's actually offering anything positive in terms of a vision? Because what we kind of seen is that much of the RNC Republican strategy currently is not, an affirmative agenda. It's also like not Biden, not Democrat, as opposed to kind of what we see right now. So is that enough?
So I think that, again, we're in this very strange time, right? Clearly, if this campaign was taking place a year ago, they would be offering something. They would be running on their record. Right. Now, the economy is in shambles. So, I mean, this is an election unlike, for all kinds of reasons, but particularly for this one, is unlike past elections. And I tend to think that, and again, I've been real clear on this show over and over again, that I'm not a political prognosticator. I don't work on campaigns. I'm just sort of somebody who's involved in policy rather than politics. But I think that the more coronavirus is in the news, assuming that news is not a vaccine, it's going to hurt Trump. Right. And the more that the rioting and the breakdown in law and order is in the news, it's going to hurt Biden. So, yes, I think people are voting against things because the two candidates are kind of short on things to vote for.
Jen, last question to you. What is your expectation for the debate next week, and how important do you think it is? How much do you think it's going to ultimately move the needle? Because I think Sagar and I are both fairly skeptical that without some major meltdown on either side, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference, exactly because of what you pointed out, that so few voters are really undecided at this point.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think that it's going to move voters. The debates at this point are for people like us, right? It's for people that hyper pay attention to what's happening, that have been following the campaign since the very beginning. Look, I think that one of the strategic mistakes and I say we collectively, I was not at the high levels of the Hillary campaign. I was only a state director. But I think on the first campaign, collectively, we went in thinking that we were going to have an actual debate. Right? That was a strategic mistake. There was no way against Donald Trump that we were ever going to talk about real policy. Right? And I think now that mistake is not going to be made. So I think that you're going to see Joe Biden prepared for the type of hijinks that Trump usually brings to a debate. So no, unfortunately, this is going to be 2 hours of a reality show. I don't think it's going to be a substantive debate in any way, and it's not going to move voters.
Well, I'm sure it'll be fun for us all to comment on.
Yes.
All right, ladies, stick with us. We'll have more Team Rising right after this.
Thanks, guys.